right now, I'm renting the cheapest 3-bedroom apartment that didn't have mold actively growing under the sink. And this is definitely not my ideal living situation because I would love to be living either on my own or in community, but it's healthy and safe and it's what I've got for now. Honestly, I've been feeling a ton of shame around my home recently because I just haven't had the budget to do anything with it. Like maybe $10 or $20 every once in a while, but not enough to do anything major. That shame is less about how the space looks and functions, although trust me, I hate how it looks, with the exception of my room, this backdrop, but it's more about the perception of how that translates into this business, especially as someone who is claiming to kind of know what they're talking about when it comes to design. I know that if I could snap my fingers and get rid of most of the stuff in here, I could make it look halfway decent on this budget. But I live with 2 other people and 2 large dogs, so most of it isn't my stuff to get rid of. The 2 other humans are dating each other, and I'm not in anything that vaguely resembles a romantic, committed, monogamous relationship with either of them. And I know I'll only be living with them for less than another year, so it isn't worth it in our particular situation to spend a lot of time and money making this apartment what we would ideally love for it to be. Also, I'm desperately trying not to accumulate more stuff. In fact, I'm trying to actively get rid of it because I'll be doing some version of van life when I move out. And yes, I am hoping to travel around doing in-person makeovers for subscribers. So make sure to subscribe if you want to get updates about how to apply for that in the future. Almost everything we have in here was free, thrifted for very cheap, or an investment piece from 5 years ago. Although I say investment lightly because I'm specifically talking about our couch, which was really just an overpriced piece of crap, but we do our best to make things incrementally better, but we can't afford to make over a whole room all at once, or even slowly for that matter. I'm kind of in the middle of a bathroom makeover, but I have been for about 6 months now, and I'm gonna try to publish a video about that before we move out, but that's about it. This video is mostly just an opportunity to practice dreaming because I realized once that I had stopped dreaming, and I think that dreaming is necessary to the human spirit. I'm going to split this video up into 2 sections with different fictional scenarios to kind of help you get a look into my mind on the off chance that it'll help you think about what to prioritize in your own home. The first section will be as if I had what should be a realistic budget of, let's say, $10,000 over the course of a year. Obviously, everything is relative, so this might sound like a lot to you, or it might sound like nothing, but it feels to me like a reasonable amount for the average person's income. And we'll include buying a few lifetime investment pieces into this. The second section will be as if I hypothetically owned this apartment and could do any renovations I wanted to it. And while we're at it, for the second section, we're going to assume that since I own it, I'm also living here by myself and can rearrange the space however I want, and that I don't have to take anyone else's needs into consideration, because honestly, I just want to have some fun. So, getting into the first section, if I rented and also had a slightly more realistic budget, I would paint everything, including the trim, because when we moved in here, I realized that the trim was painted its own special trim paint, which is just like a little bit more shiny and durable than a normal wall paint, and I decided that painting the trim was just too much, so I was just gonna do just the walls. So I would definitely paint. I don't know what colors exactly yet, but I'll have some fun in my rendering and figure something out. I would love to switch out the door hardware, specifically the handles. I don't know if we'd also have enough budget to do the hinges and like the strike plates and stuff like that, but at least the doorknob itself, and just get something a little bit more interesting than the like builder grade doorknobs that we have. Because I heard someone say once that the doorknob is like your handshake with a home. It's the first thing you touch, the first thing you interact with when you enter a home, especially for the front door. So I really love the idea of just like giving that a little bit more love. I would definitely invest in a large 10 by 13 foot wool rug. And yes, I said 10 by 13. That's because that would specifically make more sense in this particular space. Although 9 by 12 would also work. Although if you saw my last video, I found a free 9 by 12 wool rug on Craigslist, but it's one of my least favorite colors. So I'm considering dyeing it a different color, which is probably a horrible idea, but I imagine it would make for a really great video. So if you want to see me struggle, make sure to subscribe. The next thing I would do is invest in some nice boob light alternatives, which I conveniently made a whole entire video about, so I will link that below. It's got, I think it was like 126 or 127 different options in there for really neat alternatives to your common ceiling light, so definitely go check that out if you're in the market for something to replace your boob lights. And then kind of in tandem with that, I would definitely replace any cool white or daylight white light bulbs with a warm toned light bulb. And in general, just bring in more mood lighting in the form of table lamps and floor lamps and plug-in wall sconces and all of that. I would also definitely love to invest in some better furniture because what we have right now is not ideal. I specifically really love this sideboard from Hernest, and if I can't figure out how to get them to send it to me, I'm probably going to end up DIYing it because I am just so obsessed with this design. It's beautiful. Everything about like the lines and where the lines meet and the proportions, I love it so much. So Hernest, if you're watching, hi. And then I would also really love to get a new couch. I'm not sure exactly which one yet, although I do have a few in mind that I really like. There's an olive green leather one that I really love, and then there's also one that I found recently from CB2, I think, actually. I don't normally look at places like that, but I feel like couches in particular can be so hard to move and so hard to transport and so hard to find a decent looking vintage one that isn't crazy expensive. So couches are kind of the one thing that I'm like, if you need to buy it new, as long as it's really good quality and you love the shape of it and you know you're going to have it for like at least a decade, because they're so much harder to thrift. One thing I would love to do is to DIY some sort of wooden TV console that are specific to the dimensions we have, because the area right in front of the TV is a walkway, which is not ideal, and it also means that you can't really find TV consoles that are like only a foot wide. And also with the gray LVP floors, I really just want to cover those up and bring in as much real wood as possible. And then around the TV, I'm not a big fan of gallery walls around a TV, but one thing I do love, especially in many different contexts, not just around a TV, but I would love to put up like those cheap white shelves that you can find at any home improvement store and just fill up that entire wall with books, because I have a whole entire closet right now full of books, and I would love to be able to display those and also free up that closet. And then when it comes to window treatments, I would love to put bamboo blinds in the living room, because a curtain just doesn't make sense there, because there's a heater underneath that window and then the couch comes right there. And then in the bedrooms, I would probably do 2 pages curtains, because they're gorgeous and simple and easy. And I'll put my affiliate link down below in case you're in the market for new curtains. And if you use the code medora, you do get a percentage off. I don't know exactly how much it is right now because it's always changing, but... And then last but not least, I think in the dining room that we're not actually using as a dining room, we're just using as more storage for our kitchen, I've got some shelves and brackets that I've been meaning to put up, so I'd put those up. And now we're going to move on to the second section, where I hypothetically own this apartment and have a much healthier budget. Somewhere maybe, let's say, around $50,000 or something. And I also lived here alone. The first thing I would do is knock out some walls to get rid of what is currently my bedroom, and instead do a large built-in entryway situation and built-in pantry, an island, and a big harvest dining table, and stuff like that. I know this would effectively be turning it from a 3-bedroom into a 2-bedroom, but this would make it so much more livable. Most importantly, this would let the east-facing morning light that we get coming into our living room throughout the entire common space of the apartment. And it would also let the west-facing windows that are in the kitchen and my bedroom, it would let in all of that afternoon evening light into the same area too. And in general, this would just make for a much better layout, at least for my specific needs, because it would give me more pantry space and also gathering space, which are 2 things that are very important to me. I would definitely want to move the fridge, because the corner that it's currently in, those walls wouldn't exist anymore. So we would move the fridge, and I would just do like a whole built-in storage thing around there for pantry space. I would definitely want to do, at the very least, new cabinet faces and hardware, if not replacing the cabinets entirely, because these cabinets, at least they're real plywood and not just MDF, but they are old and they are not in good shape, and they are painted so terribly. So some sort of new cabinet situation would have to go in here. I do really love the look of a beautiful wood cabinet, but obviously that has to be done custom, and that is so expensive, and I really don't think that that's in our budget. So I would probably end up going with an IKEA kitchen, and then using the metal IKEA cover faces that we found on Etsy in the previous video to have metal cabinet fronts, which would be super neat. And I'll link those below if you're interested. I would definitely also want to remove the popcorn ceiling, because there's multiple different popcorn textures going on in this apartment. And there's one spot in particular where there is a line where it goes from super, super textured to like medium textured. And that is just not it. I would definitely want to replace all of the baseboards and door trim, and I was going to say window trim, but we don't really have trim around our windows because this is a shitty building that was built in the 60s. But I could probably add some trim around the windows, and then probably some crown molding, because even just something simple I feel like would help really define that line up there. And then because this apartment is what it is, 3 of the windows in this apartment are double pane, perfectly nice windows. And then the other 3 are cheap single pane aluminum windows. So I would definitely replace those 3. And then all of this is clearly not in order, because I definitely should have put the flooring before the baseboards and trim, but I would definitely replace the flooring because right now we have gray LVP flooring. And don't let the name fool you, luxury vinyl plank is not luxurious. So I would definitely do a solid hardwood flooring, or at the very least an engineered hardwood flooring, which is basically just like a thick veneer of hardwood on top of other composite woods, so that you still get the same feel and the same visual as hardwood flooring, but it's cheaper and it's actually more resistant to expanding and contracting with the changes in the weather. So if you're looking to replace your flooring anytime soon, definitely look into engineered hardwood. And then I think the last thing I would do to the apartment itself is to replace all of the cheap builder grade hollow core doors that we have with vintage solid wood doors, because this will add so much more character and it'll just be so much more pleasant to close a door. And then obviously I'd want to furnish it of course. I feel like the one main thing that I would want to do in terms of furnishing the space that's kind of like weird and unique and different would be to combine the living room and the dining room into one space. Because if you think about it, they're both centered around a table with some sort of seating around it. And so what I would do is I would do a built-in bench situation along these two walls, which would make a ton of extra storage and be much more space efficient. And then I would put a giant kind of rustic brutalist harvest table type of vibe with chairs on the other side. Because I don't really want a TV, so having a couch facing towards a TV just doesn't make sense for me. But this, I would get a lot of use out of. And then I would just do some extra little styling things, some finishing touches and all of that. And hopefully these mock-ups turned out pretty good. So, is there anything I missed? Is there anything you would have done differently? Let me know down below. If you want to support this channel, head over to patreon.com/medorakia. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, go to medorakia.com. See you in the next video.